I remember going on this youth retreat and they showed us this movie, and it had this guy goes to hell and there's a floating head. They literally had like a floating bloody head. And I think that was either the first or the second time I got saved. I can't remember which came first, the Billy Graham or the bloody head.
The podcast you're about to listen to may contain objectionable language, adult and or immature content, mentions of Jesus Christ, and unironic readings of holy Christian scriptures. If any of this is likely to offend you in a manner that you find less than enjoyable, maybe don't listen.
Hi, I'm Pastor Bob Schaefer.
And I'm Pastor Eric Damon. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to CPTB, which is not the Congressional Panel on Theological Brevity.
I'm glad. I don't want to be involved in congressional anything at this point in time.
They're trying to eliminate the filibuster.
I'm happy that we are what we are. What are we, Bob?
We are comedians with pastors talking Bible, and that is just the thing that it sounds like. Every single week, you and I sit down here with a couple of smart, funny comedians, and we talk about... Uh-oh, did we make a mistake already? Well, we'll find out. We talk about the Bible here.
And so, in other words, we bring comedians on that have no theological training, may or may not even believe in Jesus or the Bible, and we have them do our job for us.
Yeah, that's been the scam so far.
And we're still happy with this.
Lutheran grifting at its finest. That's
big fan of the grift.
You know, there's not a whole lot of available Lutheran grift. You know, I get the leftover communion bread on Sunday morning, and I get to make peanut butter toast with it, and that's like about the extent of the grifting. So this is us trying to
expand the grift.
As someone who went to a Lutheran church as a child, I would have maybe kept going had there been more grifts. So.
I was very Southern Baptist, so don't get me started. Yeah,
that's our tactic.
Yeah.
More grift.
Yeah.
But how do we pick which Bible passages we're going to talk about, Bob?
Whichever ones seem most profitable. Which usually are the ones that we are going to have to preach on, which means that we turn to the Revised Common Lectionary. That is just a standardized set of readings that churches all around the world use, and it is 3 full years of readings. So we will be, at some point, preaching on this very thing that we're talking about, hence the grift. And we're going to get to those listening to the podcast in podcast form have already heard the voices of our esteemed guests. But before we introduce them, it's useful for us to give a background of how we approach the scriptures. Yeah, so you and I, we are pastors in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, which means that we have taken a very solemn oath. Did you have to put your hand on a Bible or something?
I did not. I had to kneel while a lot of people put their hands on me.
Mm-hmm. And then we made these solemn promises, and one of them is that we will hold to the Lutheran confessions and to the teaching of the church that the Bible is the inspired Word of God and the authoritative source and norm of our proclamation and our life, which is just big fancy church talk for saying we care a whole hell of a lot about the Bible. We believe that it is true. It may not be literal truth in every single passage because it's a library. It contains entire worlds of truth, many of which are poetic and other different shades of truth. But it also, to us, the Bible is the written Word of God, which points us to Jesus, who is the living Word of God, not the other way around.
And we don't hold any of our guests to having the same beliefs that we do. We're just happy that people are willing to sit on a couch in the same room with us. So
it's a nice couch.
It's a good couch. It's a very good couch.
Thanks for showing up with us this week. We've got Zach Funk. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here. Glad to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. And we have, I never ask how to pronounce names. Is it Teresa Logan?
Yeah, I usually go with Teresa Roberts Logan just because there was The reason I did that was because back in the day, there was a Teresa Roberts also doing comedy, and I didn't know when I was still Teresa Roberts. And then when I got married, there was a Teresa Logan at my pharmacy, and so I just started putting all 3 names on everything just to make it really hard on
Just
everyone.
so they knew who you were.
Yeah. The three named person. And I'm not a serial killer, although many serial killers do have 3 names.
Sometimes assassins too.
Oh, that's true.
If you were a serial killer, though, would you say so on a podcast with a broad listenership?
I don't know if I was a really smart one. You know,
It
like
does sound
Hannibal
like
or
a serial
something.
killer move to do, to
does,
go
doesn't
onto a
it?
podcast and let everybody know.
Yeah, we'll soon realize I'm not that crafty.
When people have the same name as you, it's so weird. When I started doing, it was like my 3rd or 4th stand-up show I did. After I got off stage, these 2 people came up to me. They're like, "Hey, you were really funny, but you're not Zach Funk."
There's another Zach Funk.
Oh, just wait. Like, what do you
Holy
mean? And they were like,
moly.
"Yeah, there's a Pittsburgh-based semi-pro skateboarder named Zach Funk,
Oh
and we
my
thought skateboard Zach Funk
gosh.
started doing comedy." I'm like,
Oh my
I'm decent at the
gosh.
Tony Hawk game, so that's about
Yes.
it. And then a couple of years go by, and I start getting occasional emails asking about my service as a photographer in Pittsburgh.
Oh my gosh.
So then I think, wow, there's a Zach Funk photographer in Pittsburgh as well. And then I used to work at Lowe's, and the one day when a coworker comes up to me and goes, "Hey, you're on the schedule for lawn and garden today." I'm like, what do you mean? I have allergies. I told them, do not put me there. I will quit. And they said, well, the schedule says Zach Funk is in lawn and garden.
Oh, no.
And so I just found out.
You worked with the other Zach Funk.
So the other Zach Funk,
Which of the other Zach
so is
Funks?
this 4 Zach Funks
no,
or 3?
so the photographer and the skateboarder were the same person.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he had gotten a seasonal summer job at my full-time job.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was going to say at least y'all all do different things, but then you end up at Lowe's together.
Well, it was so funny too because I was like, "Hi, I'm comedian Zach Funk," and he was like, "Yeah, I heard of you."
No, you should have said, I'm the allergic Zach Funk.
Yeah, really, it was just I don't think he was pleased to meet me.
Is the plural of Zach Funk Zach Funks or Zach's Funk?
I think it's Funk to Pie actually.
I would say all Zach's
Excellent. Yes,
Funk.
I'll go with Funk to
Yeah.
Pie.
All the Zach's Funk.
Yeah, Zach's Funk or Funk to Pie.
All the Zach's Funky. Love it.
I have multiple Bob Schaeffers around the country who all think that Bob
Isn't there
Schaeffer
a
at
famous
gmail.
Bob Schaeffer Christian evangelical dude?
Oh God,
Isn't
I
there
hope
a
not.
famous one?
The most famous Bob Schaeffer that I know of, there is a colleague of ours who was a bishop in Florida at about the time that the church here was calling me, and some of our people actually wintered in Florida, and so they heard that their church was having an interview to call Pastor Bob Schaeffer, and they're like, "Oh boy, we are
my
real hot shit here,"
Poached.
and I have been such a letdown ever since. But he is not, as far as I'm aware, one of the idiot Bob Schaeffers around the country who all think that Bob Schaeffer at Gmail is their email address. So I get their Starbucks offers, I get their prescription notifications,
Oh my
I get
gosh.
their airport airline reservations. I know way too much about you people. Please learn your email address.
As Zach Funk, same. I get the Zach Funk emails.
It shouldn't be that hard, right? Public service announcement, your name at gmail.com is not automatically your email address.
When I worked at Lowe's, sometimes if someone was like getting appliances delivered or something, you had to fill in their info, and it wouldn't let you leave the email space blank. And I have some customers that didn't have an email address. So whenever they didn't have an email address, I created the hopefully fake email address, does not have at email.nope. And that was enough for the computer system to let it go through.
Okay. Accepted. That's funny.
Well, I hope we can recruit some of the Funktipie to, if not be on the pod, the Funktipie pod.
Yeah.
You could make that work.
We're
all of the Zach Funks.
We prefer school for the larger group of Funk to Pie.
A school of funks.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I will expect my royalty check once your pod, makes the top of Apple Podcast charts. But until then,
We have. So Teresa, you are a comedian and a illustrator. Or
Cartoonist.
Cartoonist
Yeah.
is what you would call it. Which identity would you consider to be the more primary?
It depends on what day you're talking to me, really. Because I do I get up and every day I write jokes, and some jokes work better for stage and some work better for the page. And so I just kind of divide them like that, but I don't limit my brainstorming. So it's funny. I actually do switch back and forth on my thing, comic cartoonist, comic, because it just feels like it's all part of the same thing. It's all humorist. I don't like humorist, but I know a lot of people use that.
Sounds too Twain-like.
Humorist sounds to me, and no offense to all the people who go by that, it just sounds to me like you want me to, speak at your Easter buffet. I'm a humorist, but
Bob and I are sort of required by job title to speak at Easter.
To speak at Easter, well, Easter buffets. I mean,
like cartoonist, comedian is like, that was hilarious. Humorist is, oh yes, that was clever.
Yeah, humorist is more like, oh, that could be something. It isn't yet, but it could be something. But if you call yourself a humorist, more power to you. Because what do I know? I don't even know which one I am. No, I'm both. I would say it really does go in waves. Like right now, I'm working more on cartooning, even though just because I'm working on book pitches and stuff like that. And when I'm doing a lot more comedy, I don't have as much time to do that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of working on both of it all the time.
What does the process for developing a cartoon look like?
Basically, brainstorming jokes. This same way I brainstorm stuff for what's it called, comedy, and
for
I
humorism.
do that for humorism. Yeah, for the Church of Humorism, and then if I instantly get a visual in my head, or if it's a visual based joke, you could do. And I wrote for greeting cards for many years. Did a lot of greeting card work, and that's a different skill writing wise, because sometimes it's easier to write jokes for comedy because you can do voices and you can slow down and you can do it in the right tempo for people, so that here's the comic timing with it. But when you write for a greeting card, the joke is the punch on the inside, and you have to write it in a rhythm so that when they land it, it's going to be funny to them. And if you don't write it, if it's not mechanically correct, it's not going to land with them as much. But then a lot of greeting cards also have just a full cartoon on the cover and just say happy birthday inside. But if it's the joke is a punch, a surprise punch on the inside, it's different. It's like in comic books when you're writing, like you put the surprise after the page turn. It's not, you don't put the surprise in the middle of the page, you put it at the page turn so that it lands better. And so when you're doing comedy, you have a lot more control over how a thing lands. And when you're doing cartooning, you have a lot more control over painting an environment, a whole environment. Although I will say, I am not as much, I'm very much an editor, and I'm not so into doing huge scenic cartoons unless that's the joke. And I try to keep them kind of minimal a lot. So,
do you tend to explore like the same ground as a comedian and as a cartoonist, or do you have like sort of different go-tos?
I feel like I do different things. I feel like I do different things. It's like in cartooning, my cartooning has a lot more dark kind of dark sense of humor. I do have a dark sense of humor, and that does come through a little. It's weird to talk about your own comedy in it, because it's like, well, here's how I come across, and sometimes I feel like I have no idea. But I feel like with the cartooning, I kind of do a lot of dark humor jokes and horror oriented things. And then I do a little bit of that in my stand up, but there's a lot more of talking about my background and family and different stuff in my comedy than I would ever put. That doesn't translate to a cartoon. Nobody wants to hear about my family in my cartoons.
But I feel like
maybe they do. I don't know.
Some of the
family
horror themed things might not translate as well into the stage bit as well. That you can do things graphically that can really carry that out well, and even a little bit of absurdity maybe, or that when it's just you on the stage, you don't have that whole visual aspect that that creates the atmosphere. I'm talking like I know anything about this, but
it is true, like, because you can draw funny characters, funny horror things, and you can draw a scene. When you're doing stand up, like I think I did one. Let me see. One cartoon was something like the Real Housewives of Dracula, and he's standing there, and they're all lying around doing things that Real Housewives on shows do, like, throwing wine at each other and reading magazines and stuff. And they're just kind of boring Real Housewives. And I couldn't ever do that on stage, but it's funny when you put it down. I promise it was funny.
So I did look at the Jesus Freak one.
Oh yeah, my comic book. Yeah.
And that is it's a transition into we normally try and get into your church background. Is that an entirely autobiographical comic book?
That's all true. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that.
And I'm just going to put, you have in it that you were quote unquote saved twice.
Yes. Yes. I was really afraid the first one didn't take.
Yeah. One of them was at a Billy Graham crusade.
Yeah.
Which right away marks you as a different era than some of the kids we have on this podcast.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you what though, I didn't know what a crusade was. And I thought it was like a circus, even though I was raised Southern Baptist. Like, I knew Billy Graham was famous. I just knew I was going to a crusade. And this friend of mine was like, "You want to go to crusade with me? Let's go to crusade. Let's go to crusade." I'm like, "Oh, I want to go to crusade." And I remember even dressing like I'm going to a circus. Like, this is going to be fun. And then we get there, and it's just like a bunch of preaching. I just sort of couldn't believe it. But by the end of it, I thought I was going to hell again. So I got Jesus again.
See, as someone who grew up relatively secular, when I hear crusade, I just imagine like religion-themed Ren Fair. Like, you get there and they give you chainmail.
Cool. that would have been a cool. That would have been a cool one.
We're gonna go conquer the parking lot across the street.
Some of you will be slain in the spirit, and some of you are just gonna be slain.
Yeah.
I mean, and you would think, it's so funny, as much as I was at church every time the doors were open. You would think I would have known what a crusade is, but I didn't. I did not know what a crusade was. And I was like, all right, going to the circus. And then all of a sudden we're going to the Mid-South Coliseum, which is also where I saw Elvis, which puts me in a different era too. But I mean, it was the Coliseum, which is huge. It's a concert venue. And they also would do things like all kinds of events. And I was very disappointed that it was just like a preacher again.
I think if you were expecting a circus.
No offense.
I think of myself as a moderately decent preacher, but if you were expecting a circus, you are way let down.
Yeah, I mean, he was a really good speaker, and he did convince me I was going to hell, even though I think at that point I had already been saved once. I was baptized twice. I think it took. But, that's what a lot of being, and I'm an ex-evangelical, but it's like, that's a lot of what being raised in the Southern Baptist Church is constantly feeling like you're not enough. And, I mean, if this offends any Southern Baptists, I'm just saying, do better. But I just feel like you were constantly told that you shouldn't wear culottes, or you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't do that. And girls can't preach, and girls can't be deacons. And, it's a lot of negative messaging. And then we went on a retreat. I remember going on this youth retreat, and they showed us this movie about hail. And it was, I remember this so clearly. You know how we were talking about horror movies earlier, and things sear themselves into your memory? And it had this guy goes to hell, and there's a floating head. They literally had like a floating bloody head, and this is what hell's like. There's like floating bloody heads and stuff. And I was like, I don't want to go there. I think that was either the first or the second time I got saved. So I don't know. That might have. I can't remember which came first. The Billy Graham or the bloody head. Which one convinced me? Which one would be more convincing to y'all, Billy Graham or bloody head?
How big are the bloody heads?
It was like a regular size bloody head. It was like a human bloody head. But I remember seeing it was like full Tom Savini, like it was stuff like dripping down from the bloody head. And then we all came out of that just going, wow. So you go on a retreat and you think you're going to have fun. You go to movie night, and then you go It's like, are you kidding me with this?
Do I have
This
the
is a movie?
Do I have the option of Billy Graham's bloody head?
Oh, that would be interesting.
Would,
That would've scared me
Would that
extra.
convert you?
Oh no, but it'd be more entertaining.
Okay.
That would have scared me extra.
I never will understand the idea behind the let's scare them into the church method. Like, it's just because if all you have is the punishment, or sooner or later your head goes to who's dishing out the punishment.
Well, and it's also one of those things where they're always telling you, the guilt too of like, if I don't go around sharing Jesus with everybody, it's going to be my fault when they go to hell. And so it was like, I literally remember people saying like, if one Sunday school teacher was like, if you're in line at 7-Eleven and there's a person in line with you and you do not share the good gospel of Jesus Christ with them, and they're in a car wreck and on the way home and they die, they go to hell, it is on you. And you're like, that is a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. I mean,
So you'd be in line feeling like, I need to talk to everybody about Jesus. I did too. I talked to a lot of people about Jesus.
The punishment thing is what made me like question stuff as a kid. Was that never made sense? Like I remember saying to people like middle school, like this sounds like a terrorist demand.
I mean, I use the Lutheran understanding of the scriptures they are divided into law and gospel. There are commands that do not have the role of do this or I punish you. They are commands for flourishing of life, for being reminded that you really can't do this on your own, and we can get into uses of the law, but that's basically it's held up as aspiration and as a reminder that you can't achieve it. That's it for the commandments. And then the gospel, that Jesus says that even if you don't achieve it, you are forgiven, and that's it. And our job as pastors is mainly to deliver the gospel. If we're delivering the law, it is only to lay the groundwork for what the value of the gospel is. And so it's just so foreign to have the punishment model in there. And I use the analogy for us as to where the punishment comes in is if you tell your kid, don't touch the hot stove, and your kid touches the hot stove, you did not burn your kid. The stove was hot and they were burnt. But too often the message you get in certain denominations that is you have to do what Jesus says or you will be punished. Not like maybe don't cheat on your wife and try and kill your neighbor and people will like you.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to be clear too. My parents didn't teach me the negative stuff.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, one time we visited a church and I was wearing little culottes, and the preacher spent his whole sermon talking about how women are going to hell for showing their knees and stuff and being loose and all this. And I came out and I was crying. And my dad said, "What's wrong, hon?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to hell because I'm wearing culottes." And Dad said, "Well, we'll never darken the door of this church again." Like my parents were not like that, but my whole social life became church. I was at church all the time. So it was more like, surrounding. And of course, a lot of stuff's just accepted when that's your whole life, your whole social life and everything. You just go like, right, that would send me to hell. Even though once saved, always saved, but then they take you to a crusade and you're convinced otherwise.
And that's always, I feel like the risk for me is that I have my preferred way of following Jesus and of doing faith. And I think that it is a good and faithful way. And other ways of doing that sometimes rub me wrong. And I have to be honest about that. But at the same time, I look at Billy Graham, and although I may not have agreed with him theologically, and he still did tremendous work for Jesus Christ, and so many people love Jesus because of Billy Graham. And
in the realm of famous preacher types, Billy Graham is about as good and not damaging as they get.
But there are people who
Pat Robertson in there.
There are people who
Or
love
Franklin
Jesus
Graham,
Christ because of Kenneth Copeland, for God's sake. And I might disapprove of God using Kenneth Copeland, but he does it without asking me, and he uses.
I have not seen God use Kenneth Copeland. I'll take
would
your
bet,
word
I
for
would
it,
bet
Bob, but
there
I
are
have not
people
witnessed it.
who love Jesus because they came to know him through Kenneth Copeland, however imperfectly.
In spite of Kenneth
But
Copeland.
American Jesus on the billboards and Jesus from the Bible are two different people.
But I believe that real Jesus is able to. He is not chained to Kenneth Copeland's theology, and I believe that just like he is not chained to the Lutheran uses of the law either, and he transcends what I am able to proclaim also, even if I think I am more right more of the time than Kenneth Copeland, but I'm much less entertaining.
I would think in spite that anything that gets to people is in spite of Kenneth Copeland, and that if God is as big as everyone says, that he would get to those people without Kenneth Copeland and probably people like that. And, Billy Graham, the more I've learned about him, I'm not real happy about that either. And Franklin, obviously. But I do think, I don't like the argument that, God uses horrible people, because usually most of those people are repentant, the people that really matter long term. I think they have repented of being horrible people, and I'll just I know that's just my opinion, but Kenneth Copeland, have you seen that video where he's chewing that woman out, like he's chewing this woman out, like she's challenging him and he's standing by his car? And
oh yeah, the interview one, yeah.
Oh geez, it's
he gets
super
the look
creepy.
in his
There's
eyes.
a vibe. Oh man, I got a vibe from that.
As the one person in this group who doesn't know who Kenneth Copeland is, I'm just mentally inserting any of the righteous gemstones.
No, you are
seen that
such
yet.
a level below crazy to get to Kenneth Copeland. Think more of like the Crypt Keeper.
Okay.
Except he yells.
Okay. Does he make the bad puns?
Well, and he's one of those like ridiculously mega rich, like, that's Jesus all about that stuff. Jesus really did want you to hoard your wealth. But you know what I mean? He's very questionable.
Yeah.
And I don't want to defend authentically shitty Christians.
I do want to get a tattoo that says
Authentically, I
shitty
like
Christian,
that.
though. That's my
Authentically.
next tattoo.
Authentically shitty Christian?
I'm not going to say authentically. It's going to say shitty Christian and then in little letters, but I'm trying.
Yeah,
And then it'll have
authentically
my
is-
ordination date.
But I do feel like it's funny because I used to be really involved, like, in a Christian organization that was comedy, and I just really got turned off. I literally got to where I would walk out of it.
Well, you did the Christian comedy circuit.
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
we want
But
to
I
hear
thought
about
that
this.
was really perfect for me because I was a Christian. I didn't cuss. I started comedy not at church at all. I started comedy in clubs, and I just did the same act. And then when people found out I worked clean, they would hire me at churches and stuff. And then I got into this association that was kind of like, and I met some great people there, but there was a big prosperity gospel kind of through line in that. And I got to where I would literally sit at the back and walk out now and then of the speakers they had, because I thought that's just the opposite of what Jesus taught, and I don't even hardly call myself a Christian anymore. I like Jesus, but I'm so just distanced from what is going on in his name and in churches' names. But I feel like if people really were like red letter, if people read the red letters, do you know what I'm talking about with that? That's
do not
in
know.
a lot of Bible versions. They'll put all the
That's what Jesus
words of
said.
Jesus
Okay.
are in red.
Okay,
And so when you hear people say I'm a red letter Christian, it just means that. But I got a lot of disillusionment about when I changed my like political leanings, how ostracized I was suddenly and how people presumed things about me. And I thought, I've always been a good little Christian girl. I don't know why I'm getting treated like this all of a sudden. And it was a real wake-up call for me, and it's been quite a journey. But I mean, and I don't blame Jesus for that stuff. I do blame the culture of the Southern Baptist Church and a lot of the white evangelical culture in particular, and how it treats women and women who speak up specifically. And I am one of those people that I just speak up. So get over it,
There's two things I'll say to that is one, I like to believe the tradition Bob and I in have been better
Yeah.
We
Oh,
are
I'm not
still
saying
not
that
without,
about y'all.
We are still, but I
Not
want
all
to say
Christians.
we are
Hashtag not all
still
Christians.
not without sin in our treatment of women historically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I sit in rooms and prepare for preaching with the first generation of women that were ordained to preaching. I mean, there is a long history, and there's still sects of Lutheranism that will not ordain women. So there is I think we're better
because we have that pesky uterus.
But it's
well,
still
I don't
there.
anymore. But
It's
oh,
worse.
well.
But my
Satan
real
another story.
my curiosity point, because I've never been around the Christian comedy scene. I'm a Christian, does comedy. I like to consider myself not dirty but not clean. Like I don't make dirty jokes, but I don't try and make them clean.
I'm similar. Yeah.
So, but my question is, in the treatment of women, was there a double standard of what a woman could get away with saying and what a man could get away with saying?
But if you ask the dudes and the pick me women, they say, "Oh no, it's all the same." It's not. It's so not. And if you speak up, it's like they're like, "Oh, you're bitter. You're this. You're resentful." And it's like, no, I'm just speaking up for what I'm seeing. I'm just one of those people, and you have to get over it. Like I'm a truth teller, and I'll just say it. And so that's what it is. But I also thought once I became pro-choice, and once I was obviously not in the bubble they wanted me to be in, I made that clear. And I have friends that still work the Christian circuit, and they say they won't tell their politics. They won't. And I never talk politics. Isn't even a part of my act generally. Although right now, it kind of has to be sometimes because I just can't not talk about some things. But it was never a part of my act, and so it was funny to me because I know friends who believe all the same things politically, all the same leanings that I have, but they literally have told me I'm not going to tell the churches because I don't want to lose the work. And I said, well, you know what? I'd rather be truthful with the churches and let them hire me knowing what they're getting. And especially because I don't really talk about, I just get up there and I'm goofy. It's not a huge part of what I do. But I thought I sure want people to know what they're getting. And if it's important to them that I be not pro-choice, then I would rather they know that and not hire me than hire me and be upset. Yeah. I'd just rather be truthful about who I am and what I am. And they're like, well, no, I wouldn't get any more church work if they knew I was pro-choice. And I'm like, I think you would. And I think it would be on better terms, I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that. No, I'm not sorry. I'm just so Southern. I always go, I'm sorry, but I'm not really sorry.
The double standard part is an actual just real curiosity for me. And it's based on dream guest if Taylor Tomlinson ever wants to slum down here or Pete Holmes wants to slum down here. Both of them.
Zach and I thought we were your dream guests, so whatever, man.
No one dreams of me.
Are you hurt?
No.
Are you hurt?
No one
Zach?
dreams of me. Again, we're talking about being authentic, Teresa. I know no one dreams of me. It's okay.
But
I dream of Zach Fung.
I look at
the allergic one. I dream of the allergic Zach Fung.
Okay, that's fair.
But both of them having a history in the Christian comedy circuits and seeing their relationship to it afterwards is that he has a lot of, he's moved on, but it's more of a fond looking back. And she has a very stung and bit, and it just,
women will.
My theory is the scene treated them very different.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It treats them very differently. There were people that were doing things that are like breaking 10 commandments that were dudes that nobody cared about. I remember one woman who got a divorce and they stopped booking her. And you're just like, are you kidding me with this? It's just like, there's a lot of that. I won't go into any more. I have a number of examples, but I'm not trying to gossip about specific people or anything. I just think it needs a lot of fixing.
And I go back to, we're going to get into actually seeing if we know anything about Scripture when we read it in a minute here. But I will just go back to that even the denominations that are trying to fix it, we have just begun trying to fix it. So, I mean, as I can point my fingers, and I do, I have several comments out to the SBC is I don't know what they're using their wieners for as a pastor, but I've never needed mine for the job. And
well, this is a big thing too that I keep thinking about like all the talk about body and spirit and soul, and how obsessed that certain portions of the Christian church, evangelicals in America, seem so obsessed with body parts and what people are doing with their bodies and this and that and the other. And I thought, the way I was raised, the spirit and soul are the important parts, and focusing on the body is not the point. Focusing on the spirit and the soul. And it's like the C.S. Lewis quote where he said, I have a body, I am a soul. And I feel like that. I feel like, why are so many people obsessed with what people are doing with their bodies? If someone says they're of a different spirit or whatever, why do you have to attack that? Why does it have to be when my whole upbringing, my whole very conservative Christian upbringing was we're soul and we're spirit, and that's what we are. And the body is a thing that passes. The body is a thing that houses us. And that spirit and that soul are the important part. So it's just sometimes when I'm just hearing all the culture war stuff and I'm like, boy, have we lost the plot, man. This is like...
I hear that in relationship to our folk. The church's hyper-focus on what we do with our genitals, and we need to stop that. But over-spiritualizing what the church is also makes us real easy to say we don't have to feed the hungry because it's just a body issue.
No, I don't think it would. I think you'd have to trip.
I mean, there is
fall into that.
The Lutherans have an actual history of saying that our only job is to preach the gospel about spiritual salvation in the end times. And so we don't have to deal with a little pesky Austrian that's taking over our country. That was an actual thing the Lutheran Church did. They over-spiritualized the gospel and said we never need to get involved in politics, and so we can stay silent and be quiet as 6 million Jews are put into trains and taken off. So there's a weird balance of...
But that's when you're not looking at what Jesus did and said. Yeah. If you're ignoring Jesus, it's easy to go down that road. Yeah. But that was the opposite of how Jesus
it's
acted.
Just, and I mean, I definitely don't want to focus on cultural war things, but I want to always make sure that we remember that the eternal life that our faith claims we got has already begun. We're supposed to already be living and caring for people that way and not waiting for some prize later.
And that's kind of as I generally refer to myself as an agnostic humanist. And I kind of try to look at it that way of, if there is some great reward after all this, fantastic. But if more people live like this is all there is, there could be a lot better,
We should read scripture at some point.
Yeah, and actually this is a good transition point, because in our scripture we are going to be seeing that in the resurrected Christ, the body matters. And that is exactly the reading before us. So, but before I do that, I am going to just go and restart that camera, because by my time limit here, we have 10 minutes before it's going to stop recording, and I think we are probably going to talk for more than over 10 more minutes here. So I would like to be able to have a camera on our guests the whole time. So let me just see here. There we go.
The music. Sofa dancing and chair dancing is the easiest.
It is. It's important that we're on camera. That way, when the three of you get raptured and I'm still here, there's documentation.
I don't think there will be any rapturing on camera on this pod.
If the rapture happens, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? It's going around on Threads. Somebody was chewing somebody out and said the raptor. When the raptor comes, and so then people are doing all these memes. It's like Velociraptor and just all these, but I thought that poor guy has gotten so trolled because he said, when the raptor comes, you're not going to... I don't know why I always do it in a Southern accent, because that takes me back to my history, because that's my history.
Jesus is a clever girl.
Yeah.
But see, I don't really believe so much of that stuff anymore, so I don't... Yeah, Yeah.
All right. Well, let's hear from the clever girl. Today, we are going to be looking at the readings for the second Sunday of Easter, April 12th. And this is from the Gospel of John, chapter 20. When it was evening on that day, the first day of the week, and the doors were locked where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, we're going to come back to that, Jesus came and stood
that
among
leapt out
them.
at me.
Yeah, I know. Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord. Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I send you." When he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven them. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained." But Thomas, who was called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands, and put my finger in the mark of the nails, and my hand in his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were again in the house, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were shut, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen, and yet have come to believe." Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples that are not written in this book. But these are written so that you may continue to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that through believing you may have life in his name.
I'm still such a big fan of the comic strip that has Mark and Thomas talking to each other, and Thomas is like, "Really? One time and I'm doubting Thomas. Nobody calls you running away naked Mark."
Streaker Mark.
So when it says Thomas, who's called the twin, all I can imagine is like, since he's doubting Thomas, he has a mustache and a goatee. And there's a clean-shaven good Thomas somewhere.
From the Mirror Universe.
Yeah.
I don't even remember ever having read who was called the twin. Thomas the twin.
So there is, within
I don't
biblical
even ever
scholarship,
remember that.
we're talking, he's just called the twin, doesn't say of who. There is a lot of biblical theory that says that the early church would have absolutely 100% know that he was called the twin of Jesus. He looked exactly like Jesus.
You fool, you crucified their stunt doubles.
It's a mirror universe. The multiverse of Jesus.
Wow. Unexpected Spaceballs.
That's what I'm here for.
Oh my gosh. Thomas the twin. So they were saying he was the twin of Jesus.
That is, I mean, obviously we don't know that authoritatively, but that is, there's a lot of biblical theory that says
murky,
that's what it
murky,
means.
man.
Sounds like it's like gangster. Yeah, we're gonna have Tommy the twin here. Come over, doubt you.
But he might have
And that
just
would be
been
like the worst joke, practical joke ever. Thomas, I have something for you to do.
he might have just been a guy who had a twin.
Yeah.
That could also be. Or he might have just been 2,000 years early to Minnesota fandom, and he was all about wind twins.
Jesus knew Minnesota was going to become holy ground.
Yeah.
and he called Thomas as a sign unto us.
That is wild. I mean, I am rusty, as I used to know so much, and I could say all the books of the Bible in order and all that, and we'd do that sword drill. That's probably a Baptist thing, like where the Bible's called the sword. Yeah, Zach got upset for a moment. Machete drill.
Well, you keep saying like crusade and sword drill.
Exactly.
Sounds like something that happens in a public
all that
school.
kind of language.
Yeah.
Yeah, it totally is. Are you kidding? That's all. It's all about that. We, onward Christian soldiers.
I've heard
Sorry,
that.
now you're gonna have to pay a royalty because of my beautiful rendition.
Well, and like I know that song, but I know it because Rod and Todd Flanders sung it.
Does everything come from Simpsons?
For many people, yes.
Well, I think The Simpsons has served a great purpose in that. Well, I love that. I love the higher purpose of Simpsons. But no, I just was thinking about this, about how many different versions there are too, because I was thinking I almost dug out of my basement and brought to show you my very, very marked up New American Standard. It's like marked up, man. It's highlighted and there's notes in the, but I'm kind of rusty, and I almost studied for today, and then I thought, no, I just have to go raw. Anyway, Thomas the Twin, and I just keep thinking, because I keep thinking Thomas the Tank Engine is just all I keep saying. Like, you've got a parenthetical. We're reading it. What version is this? I should ask.
This would be the New Revised Standard Version, updated edition. We keep getting new letters into it.
The bigger and
more
bigger
and
one.
better letters, the best letters.
It's like the Madden games. Christ 26.
You might have also heard him called Didymus. That is the Greek name for the twin.
Never heard him called Didymus.
Thomas Didymus.
I wonder if that's like
Diddy
Ditto,
for short, but
Ditto
then he
comes-
gave it up
Thomas
because,
Ditto.
Yeah, where like Ditto comes from.
Because he knew what was
Ditto.
coming.
Yeah.
He can't call me Diddy.
Diddy. Can't call him Diddy. No. Yeah. So interesting.
So the part about the Jews, we should point out again, locked the doors for fear of the Jews. Well,
And everybody inside those doors was a Jew, as far as modern world would look at them.
and the ancient world,
Yeah,
they
so
were
what a funky way to
Jewish. So-
translate it.
Yes, I mean, and this is reflecting conflict that the early church had with Jewish authorities and also probably with synagogue leaders who might have been inclined to kick Jewish Christians out of the synagogue because, surprise, they didn't seem to be as properly Jewish as they used to be. We were kind of Jewish heretics. And understandably, they said, this whole Jesus stuff, you got to lay off that. So this is reflecting conflict that may not have been contemporaneous with Jesus and the disciples. But they certainly had reason to fear the authorities, both the Jewish ones and the Roman authorities. Authorities had just put Jesus to death. And so I think the fear is real. I think the fact that it is attributed very specifically to fear of the Jewish people or the Jewish authorities as opposed to the ones who actually own the crosses and use them.
Yeah, I was going to say for fear of the Romans, I would have thought that was more accurate. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like fear the people next to you, not the people above you. It's like, it's the whole like making people fear the wrong people.
If you are currently in conflict with one part of the community and you are trying to suck up to the powerful people in a different part of the community, you might just kind of tweak how you tell the story that way and make Pilate seem like he's a pretty reasonable dude, all things considered.
I remember the first time I saw Pilates studio and I had no idea what Pilates was. And I was like, why would anyone name their gym after Pontius Pilate? So I was like, it says pilots. Why would anybody name? And then suddenly, it was like 2 years before I knew what Pilates was. I thought literally somebody's named their business.
It's a hand washing
after
exercise.
Pontius Pilate.
You go in and you wash left, then you wash right.
Oh man,
and
there's little bowls everywhere, and then betrayals. So anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Zach, do you know what the guy is who flies the Pope's airplane?
Is this a setup?
Is this a bit, or is this
bit?
like
It's a setup?
This is like my favorite original joke that I ever came up
okay,
with. So
please.
I'm going to embarrass myself.
Wait.
now.
Let us try to guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so
What's
it's
the
Pope,
punch?
the guy who pilots the Pope's plane.
the
Flies the
the
Pope's
person
so you're halfway
Pontius
the-
Pilate.
The Pontiff's Pilot.
The Pontiff's Pilate.
the
It was
guy,
wordplay, man.
the guy who's in charge of Pope Force One.
Pope Force One. That's a noise we need every mic, don't we? We need that at
Oh,
open mic nights.
there are so many noises that we need on mic nights.
Oh my gosh.
I think I've
Mike Knight's
told that
hurt.
one once before on the pod. I don't know that it was any better received.
We almost figured it out.
I like it.
Well, that's very gracious.
Well, no, it is. To jump back, we were talking about like the difference, like comedian and humorist. That's a good humorous joke. Oh, that's clever. I like that.
and I know
Put
what we
that
think
on-
of humorous.
Put that in
I
your
like humorous too.
that could
when
be
you do a
something.
pamphlet
Yeah, that
about
could be something.
when you do your pamphlet about being a humorist, that can go right in.
There's promise on that bit. Work it out. See where it goes.
So,
Oops, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hit the mic.
Often I throw
Unprofessional.
out the question of, if you believed that this was actually divinely inspired Holy Scripture still, instead of it being a threat to go to hell, where in this is anything, if anything is anything in this story of Jesus appearing to Thomas seem like good news to you in your life now?
Awkward silence.
So you're asking, would it be?
I'm asking you to do my job for me. Is what I'm doing.
If the question is it good news for us if the dead rise? I generally think no.
And we love zombie movies.
Yeah,
but
you don't want to see it happening.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's I love first person shooter games. I have no desire to shoot anything.
Well, I'm more like, now I don't believe the Bible literally anymore. Like, I believe there's a whole lot that went into it. I believe in Jesus as a historic figure and an important and spiritual figure. Mm-hmm. And I'm a very spiritual person, like, because I'm one of those kind of, like, see things, and I believe in everything. I mean, I really do just believe in kind of everything, but I don't really believe in that the way that I used to. Like, it's all, to be taken literally, and almost, and I know that's not what you said y'all believe either, but not that we have to all agree, obviously, but I do love the message of, you don't have to be here and know everybody to believe, that it's more important that you're able to accept a thing. And that is a thing to me about, like, when people say they just don't believe anything exists, they don't, when they don't believe anything exists, I think, well, that's as weird as just believing everything that people throw in front of you. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't, unless you know everything, you can't say this doesn't exist. But I feel like you still have the right to critique everything and discuss it, obviously. But I
think that might be, for me, part of a hint of good news to the believer in this, is that Thomas does critique it. He explicitly says, I can't believe what the story you're telling me. And he does not get cast out into hell. He gets a visit from Jesus later to go, okay, well, if you can't believe without putting your finger there, go ahead and put your finger there.
And that's why I eventually settled on, like, being an agnostic humanist, not an atheist, because I think it is as, just to say, I know there is nothing, I am 100% sure, is the same thing, like you said.
It's the same thing as absolutism.
So,
just going, I know everything.
Yeah, so I try to say that, like, I have people in my life that say they can, like, feel spirits around and things like that.
Yeah,
and
I'm one of those people.
Yeah,
I see stuff,
and I've never had that, and I don't think you're making anything up, or I don't think you're wrong. It's just something that I don't feel. When I worked at Lowe's, I was teaching somebody how to run the paint machines, and I said, okay, grab any color off the wall, and we'll, like, go through the steps of making a gallon of paint. And he comes over and says, here's a nice flesh tone, and he hands me a green. I'm like, all right, either you're colorblind or you're a Martian. Like something is off here. He's like, oh yeah, I'm colorblind. I'm like, oh great, they gave me a color blind kind of guy for the paint department. Yeah, and so I look at, now if you're someone who's, like, charging and saying, like, I can channel your dead relatives and stuff like that kind of stuff, I'm inherently skeptical.
I am not that good
for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if it feels like a grift, I'm going to question it. But if it's just something that you believe and it helps shape your life and helps you be a better person, I don't even know if this is true or not, but I accept that I may be, for lack of a phrase, spiritually colorblind. Mm-hmm. That I might just not have whatever it is in me that lets me pick that up.
Our senses are tuned differently.
Yeah.
And there are things that exist in reality that you can't perceive. And when you realize that, that's disconcerting. Do you guys remember, like, about maybe 15 years ago, a really big thing was the mosquito sound?
That sounds familiar.
So this was, like, a particular frequency that younger people could hear, but generally past a certain age, you've lost that range of your hearing, and And so it was something they were actually using like in stores to keep loitering teens away.
And people under a certain age couldn't hear it.
Yes.
I mean, over a certain age couldn't hear it. Sorry.
And actually there was a lot of legal controversy over, is this even legal to do, that you are essentially creating a biological attack on somebody for just being present. And in fact, the older people can't perceive it at all. You may have that turned up so loud that it is physically able to do damage to your hearing, and yet you can't hear it. I mean, it was a whole thing. Of course, I was working at the IT help desk at Seton Hill just after moving out to the Pittsburgh area, and I admit that I was just juvenile enough that I pulled it up on the laptop and played it just to see what the work studies would do. And it was kind of fun watching them all cringe in unison and screech, "Why are you doing that? Stop!"
Wow.
Because I can.
Because I am power. I have power over you.
And you couldn't hear it. You were old enough not to hear it.
I was just old enough that I had lost that.
You would absolutely be Magneto, Bob.
Yeah.
There are worse characters to be.
Very much.
But it's still he would be.
Yeah.
And so that made me aware, though. I mean, it was kind of disconcerting, though, to think that there were sounds that I used to be able to hear and I can't now. And I'm not even aware that I'm not hearing them because my sensory equipment no longer picks that up. And, the realization that there are lots of wavelengths of what we call light, and we only see some of them. But X-rays are the same thing. We just don't see them. So
I was listening to the radio on the way here.
That our sensory limitations are a real thing. And so bringing this back to the text, the idea that Jesus caters to the particular needs, that Thomas needs, Thomas thinks he needs this. You notice that at the end of the story, Thomas doesn't actually stick his finger in the wound.
Because he's a coward.
I mean, he might be, right? I mean, that might be one of those, holy crap. Oh, no, I'm not doing that. But he exclaims.
He went there.
They didn't know about germs back then. He shouldn't have been afraid.
It's like,
that doesn't look healthy.
Jesus went there, man. Jesus went there.
And he did. I mean, like literally, Jesus went there and he said, okay, if this is what you need. The Venerable Bede, one of the significant theologians of the church, talked about the scars from the crucifixion as the trophies that Jesus won in his victory, and that he would by no means let go of those trophies. And so that's one of the things that it is kind of odd that the resurrected body of Jesus is not a pure, perfect body. It has scars. It has marks where he was wounded, and that those matter to him. Those are not just part of his story. They are like the defining moment of his victory.
And don't you just picture, though, all the time, I just always picture Jesus just walking around face palming at all the stupid stuff the disciples are getting into, and they're falling asleep at Gethsemane, and they're just doing all this stuff.
Yeah, but if you face palms, though, we can.
And then he can still see you.
That's exactly, yeah. It's like, Jesus, we know you're watching. Listen, just because he resurrected doesn't mean he has a healing factor, okay?
Don't play peekaboo with Jesus. He knows what's going on.
It's like the new Frankenstein. He heals. Yeah. New Frankenstein's creature, I should say.
You're looking at me like I
Dr.
have
Frankenstein would heal
valuable input.
I was going to let you bring it home with something brilliant.
And I am. I don't know that I have.
So you're just talking about it's like Jesus meets people where they are.
That's. I mean, really, because I bring up that question.
Which,
where is the
Lord,
good
I
news in
wish
this text?
we saw more of.
Because I mean, Bob and I's jobs on Sunday morning is to take the text and find what is good news in it to a group of people who believe that this is divinely inspired story of our God. And so the real question of what about it is good news to someone whose job is not to sit and research it all the time. Now, this particular passage, as you look to me to wrap up, I haven't preached the second Sunday of Easter in, I don't know, 8 years, 9 years, because I take vacation after the week after Easter.
What do you mean the
single
second
year.
Sunday of Easter? You mean Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday?
No, so Easter is a season, and so there's Resurrection of Our Lord is the first Sunday of Easter,
Which you would call Easter.
Oh, okay.
and then this is the second Sunday of the season of Easter.
So
like
this
sweet-
is a week later.
So many marshmallow chicks. I can't even get
It
my mind
sweeps
around
and the
it.
ratings come in.
The
You find out where
the season. Yeah.
you get all the
And
guest
then, and then
stars.
you've got kind of the false ending of the first
Yeah.
season, and then we reboot.
So wait, I'm the only one who's actually grifting this week?
I've never.
All the grift for me. Yes.
If I could come up with something, I could give it to my pulpit supply minister, but I do think there is something to the fact that we are able to critique that. I mean, Jesus in the Bible, time and time again, despite Western Christianity's obsession that if you ever doubt, you somehow don't have faith. The Bible, time and time again, has people going to God, and in this case, going to the disciples and saying, "This is too difficult. I can't do this." And then God showing up and saying, "Maybe you can." In Elijah's case, he shows up and says, "How about you take a nap and have a snack first?" But it's so there's a lot of that it is there's some good news that it is okay to doubt, to actually use your critical thinking and say, hold on, I need to find some more in this. Now that you can bounce that off, come to me as little children, but I don't believe that being non-critical is anybody who's spent any time around little children, being non-critical is not the exact trait that I think of, as children are the most suspicious group of people on the face of the earth.
I needed everything explained.
Yeah.
And so there, this thing that those who come to me as little children are.
I always thought it just meant curiosity. I mean, I guess it's like one of those things where everybody sees that differently. Like I always thought, come with curiosity and ears to hear.
And I would find that to be more in line with my understanding of a trait of childhood than not doubting, because man, when adults tell you something as a child,
kids have like 25 questions about everything.
And so I find something in that if the people in our pews are sitting in a moment where things don't seem to be adding up, it's okay to try and look deeper and find out what adds up. I mean, especially in a world where a lot of the church right now is participating explicitly in some of the harm that's being done in the world. It's a good time to use your critical thinking and look closer as to whether or not things you're hearing are adding up.
I keep wondering, like, how did so many people miss the message where Jesus was like, I didn't come to build an earthly kingdom. Didn't come to build an earthly kingdom. And then there's so many people like just ignoring that. Yeah, whatever, Jesus. Let's build an earthly kingdom.
Because it was always about power. It was never about...
it was about power.
To be fair, they missed it in Jesus's life too.
Yeah.
After Jesus,
it's like, how do you miss this?
I mean, Jesus has to run away from the crowd for fear that they will force him to be king. I mean, that's while he's alive on earth.
Or make him feed him again.
No,
they're like, get dinner again. I got to do this.
No, that always drives me nuts. Like the current stuff going on. Like, oh, this is this situation in Iran is gonna bring about the end times. It's like you don't put in a cheat code. It's not like up, down. Jesus returns.
Up, down.
I mean, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But if it happens to be, I'll be very surprised.
I mean, we think about it. The Konami code is for infinite lives, and then isn't that really what the kingdom of heaven is? Infinite lives.
It's not a life without tears and woe. It's just every time that you fall down the cliff, you wake up again back on top of the cliff.
Well, I always thought they would have won. They would have won a lot more of us over with a positive message of heaven rather than scaring you with hell.
Yeah,
like because I always thought heaven would just be boring. Like it's
I made
just
that
like because the
argument, too.
pictures that you got about it. But I always thought somebody needs to put some time into that. I think there was one movie years ago with Robin Williams that people said, "Well, if the heaven's like that, okay." But
the
otherwise,
what
you're like,
dreams
if you're
may
just
come.
if you're just in a choir, forget that.
So, Zach, if we catch you in the various churches going up to all of the crosses and treating them like a big directional pad, trying to Konami code Jesus into returning,
down, side,
I will come and visit you in jail.
Okay.
Assuming that doesn't happen, what are you guys up to? This will drop on April 6th. So what do you have coming up on or around after that?
So I host here in Pittsburgh. I host an open mic Tuesday nights at Mr. Small's, a former church in Millvale. Mm-hmm. So if you'd like to,
very cool venue.
Yeah, it's my favorite place in town. So check that out. Last fall, I recorded a new album called Agent of Farce on Burn This Records. You can find that on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all kinds of things. And if you check it out, hopefully you enjoy it. And if you don't, I'm sorry.
Well, for me, I'm working mainly on comics right now. I'll probably show up at Zach's mic at some point, but mainly working on print comics and stuff. Although I do have Jesus Freak up on Tapas, Tapas, and you just search Jesus Freak, and it's the first 17 pages of my comic book. So I'm working on comics and a couple of book pitches, and that's where I've been focusing most of my time right now. And pretty much just finding bargains at TJ Maxx now and then. That's kind of what I do. Yeah. No.
That's worthwhile.
No, actually, I love
time.
and just traveling when I can. But yeah, mostly just at my art table with my head down at it and drawing and writing jokes. So.
And where do we find you guys on social media?
All my stuff is, because I used to have red hair and I'm too lazy to change all my social media, everything is Laughing Redhead. So at Laughing Redhead on Blue Sky and Threads and Instagram, and my website is laughingredhead.com, and my Etsy shop where you can buy comics is Laughing Redhead, and there's links to all of it on my site, laughingredhead.com.
I'm on social media at ZFunk, and I'm sorry for the coughing.
I like
my throat is scratchy.
I like the way
coughing.
you did hand symbols for Z-Funk,
Yeah, I talk with my hands with it, and then just
doing this.
Yeah.
Z-Funk, yeah.
Exactly.
And we have no hand symbols, but we are at CPTB POD, at CPTB Pod. And that brings us to the end of another episode. If we offended you in any way, we are sorry.
And
Yeah, but
proud.
you listened to the entire episode. It is your fault. We're not sorry at all.
You were warned.
We're sort of proud, actually.
Boy.
if we
So
did that.
as long as you're here, why don't you do all the things? Like us, subscribe to us, share us with all kinds of people who need to hear this.
Share us with non-people who don't need to hear it. We'll take the listeners.
Non-corporeal entities. We, as long as they can push the subscribe button. And we will be back in a week with more funny and more God talk.
Until then, may the Holy Spirit do her thing in your life.
Earth thing.